Singh, and in all the northern states, the army and the police and the paramilitary forces, they were given orders to kill Sikhs who had an independent mind and who stood against this diabolic massacre of the Sikhs. So Operation Blue Star, and after that Operation Rose. What Rose was it?
Wood Rose.
Wood Rose was carried out by the Indian Army. One thing that favored the Sikhs from an entire massacre was that some of the Sikhs, they escaped into Pakistan to save their lives. Now, Pakistan is said to be an enemy country of India, the worst enemy. But this Indian government forced and drove the Sikhs to seek refuge in Pakistan. And ever since then, the Indian government has been blaming the Sikhs and the Pakistan for collusion. Just recently, after killing the Sikhs en bloc, the Ministry of Home Affairs has sent a team under the National Investigating Agency to Great Britain to find out the remnants of Sikh struggle and resistance. Now, I don't know how, if Britain is a sovereign country, how it would allow the Indian government to probe into the affairs of its own citizens, the Sikhs who are now British. That is a separate thing. But when this genocide started, the Indian government did not allow the International Society of the Red Cross, which is based in Geneva and has offices over here in Delhi, to visit the Punjab and the areas which were being cleaned up by the Indian Army. And so also Amnesty International was prohibited from visiting these areas where it was said that the cleaning operation is being carried out. India built a counter resistance group, insurgency group. They were called the CATS. And P. Chitrambaram was the Union Security Minister of Rajiv Gandhi. And he brought in plane loads of ammunition and rifles from Soviet-occupied Afghanistan, and he distributed these arms to the counter-insurgents who were trained to take on the Sikhs. It is a normal rule that any military equipment or police equipment which comes in is registered in the armories of the police or the army, which was never done. And there was a very strong journalist at the time, Dhiren Bhagat, and he ingeniously let out the plot in papers how these armloads of planes had arrived from Russian-occupied Afghanistan and being distributed. And as you call the Indian press, Dhiren Bhagat, after that disclosure, was killed on a road in Delhi, and it was said that it was an accident. But none of these journalists, they dared or were willing Jagan Bhagat. You can see it on the encyclopedia, you can see it on your web. If you take the name Jagan Bhagat and find out for all the international papers he worked for. And I think he died a dog's life, the poor chap, because the Indian press, as with the Tamil people, has always been against the Sikhs. And these massacres and the crime of genocide, it never calls genocide or massacres. It is always referred to as riots. Now, riots are between two communities, but it were only the Sikhs who were targeted. Therefore, it can't be riots. You go down into the press club over here, downstairs, ask a journalist what it was, and he'll say it's a riot. It is tabulated as a riot. Massacre of thousands of Sikhs. No other community dying on the other side, they say is a riot. This is how the Indian press has been hand in glove with the Indian government in expressing the truth about the Sikhs. Well, like my friend has said, that the Sri Lankan army is trying to change the race of the Tamils. This was also decided in the Punjab, and a chain of villagers were forced into an army camp in district Amritsar, and Brigadier Singh told them that if you Sikhs don't come to heel and you don't become nationalists, we will impregnate your women with people from soldiers from Bihar and UP and change your race. So what is happening in Sri Lanka is not very unusual. It is one of the steps that India does to people whom it wants to surrender morally and physically. This is one of the strategies of the Indian state. Now, this genocide, nobody has dared to look into it, neither the Supreme Court, nor the High Courts, nor the National Human Rights Commission in Delhi. They just don't want to touch this issue. And if a little thing happens to a Hindu organization, the Supreme Court, as I said in my earlier talk, it takes suo motu notice of that, like that gentleman from Hyderabad who wanted to hold a rally against the government, and the government police disturbed it. So the Supreme Court sent a suo motu notice to the Delhi police to answer why they had disturbed a peaceful democratic rally. We do think that India is a democratic country, but it can't be democratic if there is no rule of law. Without the rule of law, it can be mobocracy or ruled by the majority. Now, if you see the parliament, the structure of it, it's backed by Aryan and superclass Hindus who are not worried about what happens in Tamil Nadu, Kashmir, Punjab, the Sikhs, the Mizos, the Nagas. They are only worried about the security. I remember as a member of parliament when parliament was attacked and we were all there. The greatest worry was when Mr. Vajpayee surrounded Pakistan with all the army commands threatening it that we will go to war. But gentlemen, I have never seen bigger cowards than these Indians. Their top bureaucrats, their MPs, their top notches, their families fled lock, stock and barrel to Switzerland and Western European countries, thinking that there might be a nuclear war. So we are being governed by a pack of cowards and bullies. And the best way to deal with a bully is to meet him head on. If you don't meet a bully head on, he will carry on bullying you. So, you see, it's very fortunate that the meeting has taken place over here about the Muslims, the Tamils and the Sikhs and things like that. Now, elections are here. And the Tamils are great people. I remember the Hindi education where it was such a great success in Tamil Nadu that Lal Bahadur Shastri promised that Hindi would not be thrust nationally on the people of India because the Tamils educated to such a great extent then. But the Sikhs and the Tamil people have not lived up as united people amongst themselves, not Tamils and Sikhs, but amongst themselves to oppose this genocide. And all our leaders, they have become collaborators with the Indian state. Let it be Badal, Amrinder Singh, Barnala, Congress leaders, they are collaborators. And so is Mr. Karunanidhi